Hockey Nation fans, welcome back to the Hockey Nation live show with Coach Frenchy directly from the booth. And of course, the co-host, Michael Devon directly from the West Coast. Michael, have a great, amazing weekend.
Yep, it's over.
Here we go. Ready for
Dodgers won.
are you ready for the last week of October? That make with the Halloween next weekend is going to be
Halloween.
is going to be the first Halloween COVID-19 we never had before. So I don't know how this is going to act, but we'll see what happening for many people. But talking about Halloween, we have a couple ghost team with no signature, and they are very quiet on the UFA. So we'll see what happening this week. Maybe we have a couple of players going to maybe go jump on that, but I think right now the memo around the league is just be quiet and see what happening. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the salary cap friendly between the signature and today we continue the marathon of the 31 days, and I believe today it's time for the Colorado Avalanche, right?
Colorado Avalanche.
Exactly. So it'll be a very interesting. Since the last time we talked, the last signature in NHL was Sam Reinhart with the Buffalo Sabres. And that's a funny thing because they signed another players like yesterday during the day, their goaltender RFA players, Allmark. Is it Linus?
Yeah, Linus Allmark, yeah.
Okay, so they signed him, $2.6 million 1 year. And again, the 27 goaltender become like, I think he was the number one goal. I think we can tell him like a little bit like the number one goaltender for the Sabres. He's a 6'4", 215. He's originally from Sweden. 2012, round 6, 163 overall pick. I believe he was with Buffalo, if I can call right?
Yep, they drafted him.
Yep. So is with the signature yesterday, just awaiting the salary arbitration was supposed to be today, and that make him last season he has 17, 14, 3 with an average of 2.69 goal again. I think it's not bad at all, Michael.
He has a very good save percentage. Like his save percentage is like 915, I think.
Yeah.
He's that's why people don't really know who he is yet, but I think that with the rest of the team improving, he's a very capable goalie. He's not young. He's like 26 or 27 now, so he's ready to go, and be kind of a number one, I hope. Carter Hutton, I don't think is a great, he's better as a backup. So if that's the way it works, then that'll be a great advantage.
It's a funny story. I can, when you look a little bit deeper with his story about, his stats, everything, he started really 5 years ago at 22. He was, he was backup number 2, and it was like he played 20 games.
Yeah.
8, 10, 2, 2.60, and then he disappeared for 2 years. Like he played only one game in 16, 17. Then he played only 5 games in 17, 18. And then he became
injury problems, didn't he?
I tried to figure out, honestly. I'm not there yet.
I think he had an injury problem at one point.
So, we he came back goaltender number 2 after that, right?
Yeah, it was kind of strange. But I think he's a guy he's hit 97 games now. His numbers have always been real good. I think you watch him some games and he can steal games. Now he's kind of been a 500 goalie, which I think that's more a reflection of the team. But it's going to be real important for him to be a legit number one, I think, for them to take the next step. They're going to have a lot more offense, I think, this year with the additions that they've made. So it's going to be up to them now. I mean, if he falters, then I'll be very surprised, though. I think he's a big goalie. He's quiet in the net. He's got good rebound control. I think he's an underrated guy, and we're gonna find out this year. Like if I'm wrong, then you'll see, because there's nothing wrong with the team on paper. God, what is this?
Maybe he has a good it's a good year for him to figure out honestly what is the next for him.
For sure.
Just clarify the season he played only 1 game and 5 game. He was on the Rochester American and EHL. He was like 55 game and then 44 game back-to-back season over there. So he have a very good season in 17-18 over there. He has like 2.44 and he has also a .92 too. So he did very well with before. Goalie usually take a little bit longer to jump in NHL.
Yeah.
To other young forwards, something like that. They are a little bit more patient with them, and to become a goalie number 1, it takes time. It's not like you jump.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, you have exception, of course, like Carey Price and Calder.
Yeah, those are exceptional. I think the only asterisk for me is he has always been a .500 goalie. So sometimes, that's a concern. When I look closely, like Rochester's team when he was .500 was not that great. Like they weren't an outstanding team. He was .500 on a team that was 9 games below .500. So it's going to really, though, be incumbent on him to say, step up and be able to win, to be a .550 or a .600 goalie. That's got to happen for them to be successful.
Yeah, but again, it's like it's not easy when you are play with a team like Buffalo the last 2 years.
Correct. That's what I'm thinking. But that's the only I think it's a very small leap for him because his other numbers are all very good.
Exactly. One thing I can mention just to you, and maybe I could be wrong, or maybe you can tell me, you know what, maybe is a good perspective. I believe, both of them are. Max Strom is from Sweden, right?
Yep.
And he took him time to become
a lot of time.
Right?
Big skinny goalies, right?
Yeah. So I don't say they are similar, like you're saying, but what I'm thinking about goalies, everything like that, I feel like So
I totally agree with you. I think Markstrom, it was weird with Markstrom, right? Because when he was young, when he was like 18, 19, it was like, wow, this guy's ridiculously good. Sweden was ridiculously good at the World Juniors. And he was like, wow, he's going to be the next great goalie. And then he struggled. The adjustment to pro was really tough for him. And it didn't look like, he got called up and he didn't play great. He went back, he went to the ECHL, and then, he evolved. So I think it's a good point. Like, goalies take a little bit of time to mature. I think everyone picks these big goalies, and he was not physically mature. He was 6'6" and like really skinny. So I think it just takes time. I think he's going to work out really well. I don't know the goalie coach in Buffalo, but
that'll be interesting what happening with him this year. Like you said, he's going to be really a good thing about that part. Talking about Buffalo, let's finishing that story about what's going on with them. Now they still have 2 more RFA, Lawrence Pilot, and Victor Olofsson.
Well, that's the big one. Like, Olofsson had a huge year. He has shown he's lethal on the power play, and he really helped them get to another level offensively. So he's going to be very important. I'm guessing this is a bridge deal for him.
Well, he honestly flourished last season, right?
Totally. He's a very good hockey player.
So it's like 42 points in 54 games. You have 20 goals, 22 assists. And he was like, if you remember, he scored like, he has 11 goals last year on power play.
Yeah,
so,
that's why he's lethal on the power play.
So I think he has if you remember at the beginning of the year last season, I think he had like his first 6 goals or something like that. It was all on power play.
And you look at him, he's he scored at every level. Like, he had 30 goals in 6 games. He had 27 in 50 games in Frölunda. He did, he killed the AHL with 30 goals in 66 games. They call him up for 6 games. He gets 4 points. Like, he's very consistently an offensive producer. This guy was a 7th round draft pick.
Yeah, it was 181 overall pick. So it was,
He's only listed as 5'11". I thought he was a little bigger than that, but
so that's what happening with them now. That makes Buffalo very low on their cap salary, and think the situation we have to think about this, right? When we look about the depth chart and the roster, is the situation of Carl Aposo.
yeah, they can afford to deal with that for now. I think they keep him just for depth. He's getting up there. He's never been a big goal scorer. He's a power forward type guy. He's a veteran. He's great in the room. Good leader. Was he the captain in?
Yeah, I think so. Or even
Islanders?
Yeah, possible.
I think he was. So he's a good player. You don't want to be paying him $6 million, but he came there when no one else would go there.
Yeah. Now, if they buy him,
yeah,
he will have to. They will save them $3 million in cash.
Maybe they do it,
and then by spreading out $6 million over 6 years, $1 million per year.
Yeah, it's very possible. I kind of feel like they'll keep him just because of who he is, but it's very possible. They're not under cap pressure, so I think we'll see. I mean, they have like $6.5 million. They'll probably give 2.5, 3, unless they sign Olofsson to a long-term deal.
Yeah,
which is, well, he's 24, so maybe they give him something longer. But the trend suggests that they're going to sign these guys to short-term deals.
Yeah, talking about news around the league, if you thought that, what he get out of the meeting Friday, if you remember, all the manager was together, they all together. They was talking a lot about a draft lottery where Steve Azumi was really make a lot of noise. He was louder about that one over there, and some of them, few GM recall maybe to go back at the one they did like in 2011, where they cannot move out for 4 spots. Does it make sense?
I feel like the prior one was definitely more fair. I mean, I think if you're willing to sacrifice 82 games and being a bad team, which is some team strategy, you can't go all the way because it's so competitive,
I don't want to be a bad guy here,
but I think it's Edmonton that's the issue, right? Like, Edmonton kept winning the first pick, and it was an overreaction to them getting McDavid.
I can tell you that, I know from sure very good sources, the year when Toronto got Austin Matthews, I can tell you that Toronto was not pushing hard the last 10 game, 15 game of the season to not finish first. They're last.
For sure.
And that's normal. I believe that's a part of the game. It's not, no team's going to lose the 45 last game because they want to finish last, right? But when you are the situation, you say, you know what? Who cares right now at that moment? So some team never mentioned this, but some they will do a couple of moves at the trade line. So you know what? Let's give this or put maybe a players down in the AHL and let's provide. If I remember that year, it was Gary Sparks and the net, and they will try to hang in there just to be sure, and they get a couple of players, they trade every time. But it's not again, but I think it's a normal silent movements at the end of the year. Like, they don't tell anything like that, but they know what they are doing in that way right there. So, but again, I don't think so. It's fair. I think a couple of teams got not lucky, and then they got for a couple of years back from years they cannot come back on the top of the league because they cannot compete when they supposed to get, I don't know, pick number 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then you pick 7, 8, 9, or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Then you see a team like Detroit that finally gets rid of like players that should have been gone a long time ago. They have a horrible year. And then they get they got Lucas Raymond, they get 4th, but the difference between getting a Lucas Raymond and then New York Rangers getting Lafreniere is ridiculous.
But
I mean, New York Rangers played in the playoffs.
on the flip side, and that's not going to be like cover everything what I'm going to say, but I believe they was lucky Detroit this year. The talent wise for the draft
was
deep, right? Because sometime it's really bad. Like you know, what I
mean? Fourth can be like horrible. Fourth is the worst because sometimes you totally miss on the fourth pick.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one over there. I think it's something you have to look about this. How would be? I agree. You have some modification over there. We'll see.
At least they should have had top 3. I mean, after that, that was tough. That could put them back for quite a while. I think they drafted really well, and you're right. They got fortunate because they, a very talented player was still there.
Yep.
But the difference between getting Stützle and Raymond right now could be really big. I don't know if it will be, but if you watch the two guys at the World Juniors, you watch Stützle playing pro versus Raymond, could be huge. Could be the difference between a guy that gets 70, 80 points and a guy that gets 40.
But again, like if they would pick number 3, which player are they going to get?
Oh, they would totally take Stützle. They would have taken Stützle at 2. They would not have taken Byfield.
For the next 4 years, 5 years, you're going to see the difference between both, and then you're going to compare, like, you know what I mean?
For sure. But I mean, you can easily say Stützle was the second best player in the draft. Raymond 4th or 5th. Raymond could have dropped to 9th, but Stützle definitely was not going to drop to 9th.
Yeah, of course. Talking about this, I have a question about this. Maybe you can clarify the situation about that one there. So they said the second buyout window, team that will have a second buyout window owns their final arbitration case is settled or awarded are Detroit, Buffalo, New York Islanders, Colorado Avalanche, Carolina, New York Rangers, Ottawa, and Florida Panthers. What's all about that? Do you know, like?
I'm trying to understand that, but my understanding is that if they still have arbitration cases, they have the chance to buy players out and walk away from them.
So they have an extra time to get RFA.
That's my understanding.
Going arbitration. That's what you tried to tell us?
I believe so. And part of that is being able to buy out contracts to make room.
Okay. It makes sense now. You know what I mean? Like, completely makes sense about that. I was just not sure exactly.
I think that's the reasoning, because it's like if you have an arbitration award that's like $5 million and you have no cap space, what do? You should be able to choose between buying out another player and signing that contract, especially if you're obligated under arbitration.
Before we jump on, we have a couple of minutes. Before we jump on the Colorado Avalanche preview, and I'm very excited to hear from you, and that's one thing. I want to talk about a little bit about the salary cap breakdown in the NHL. Team are really struggle, and some team are in good position. And let's start with the 3 team where they are not in the great position right now. First of all, they are really cap hell. Hell is really 3 teams: the Tampa, Islanders, and Vegas. All the 3 teams have to figure out something. Just give you an idea about Tampa. Tampa is over right now $8.7 million cap space.
I mean, if you look at the numbers, Anaheim, Vegas, Washington, Toronto, St. Louis, Vancouver, and Arizona are technically all over the cap. So you got to think that's going to be temporary. So there's a lot of teams like right there. And then, Pittsburgh, Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, and Winnipeg are all up there. Tampa, I don't know what Tampa is showing $78 million. I'm trying to think of why.
No, so the key behind this is because they have $11 million on RFA.
That's what it is. Yeah, so they're going to be in trouble.
So they have still 3 players to sign on RFA. One thing I learned today, and I want to share with you. Do you know the minimum players of roster NHL need?
The minimum?
Yeah.
I thought it was 21, or 23. Sorry, it's 21 or 23. I think in a game you can dress 12, 7, and 2, right?
It's 21. on your salary cap. So
Right.
you need to show 21 players to reach X, your minimum salary cap or your maximum salary cap. Does that make sense?
Some teams have 17.
And then you have 23 max to put on the roster.
Right. There you go.
And that covers also the same position like the minimum and the max over there. So one they are talking about Tampa Bay right now, they have only 18 players on the roster.
Wow.
So they need to add 3 more. That would make them 21. And to do that, their RFA, that's including Sergachev, Cirelli, and Cernak. That make them at $11 million. That make them under $8.7 million. So it's very, very interesting. I did that exercise and
Yeah.
like, oh wow. Like you talk about Nashville Predator, they have 19 players. Florida Panther have 19 players. Nashville have only a 1 RFA compared to Florida and have no RFA. That would be very interesting when you talk about.
It's definitely tricky. Can you excuse me for 1 sec and
Yep.
take it? I'll be right back.
Yep. So at the same time, we're talking about the salary cap. The 3 things we talk about is they are the negative side, right? So they are like example would be in the red is 3 teams. Tampa Bay Lightning have 18 players, 3 RFA. If we made them a salary at $11 million, that give them under almost $9 million. We thought they tried to let it go Johnson for $5 million. That would not be enough. They would have to let it go someone else. So they are a situation where Brisbane have to figure out something at some point. Would be really interesting what kind of move the Tampa Bay Lightning is going to do for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you think they signaled it with the Johnson free? They tried to shed that salary. Nobody bid on that. I think somebody's going to want him, but they want them to retain him. They can't retain any of that contract. It's not going to work. So if they do have to retain it, then they got to get rid of another player.
Yep. So it'll be very interesting about that. The Islanders are 19 players, 2 players on the 2 players to sign up. They are RFA at $12 million. That'll give them a $2 million under salary cap, and that's the reason why I believe they trade Devon.
Toews, because Colorado is having problems. We'll talk about that. They're having problems signing him.
So that would be something interesting to see that over there. And then the next one is, of course,
weird to me is the Islanders have cap problems. Like, I don't feel like, I don't know. There's something about the way he manages the cap. It really surprises me. I always think back to that Kovalchuk contract in New Jersey that he signed and how they got it was like an illegal contract and the NHL slapped them. And then they had to get the guy to retire to let them out. Like the NHL gave them an out. The player gave them an out. Like something about the way he manages the cap is a little bit weird. And then they got a Barzal, right? So they'll have to deal with that. But
yeah,
anyway.
there's a problem there for that one. That's what number 3 is the Vegas Golden Knights. They have 20 players. They have to sign an extra one, and they are minus 1 right now. So it'll be interesting about that over there. Montreal 21 players, Toronto 21. They are at plus 0.5 $million. Calgary is there also with 1 RFA. Washington, you mentioned about that. That's fun between us. Colorado Avalanche, they have 19, 2 RFA. We're going to talk about them in a few minutes. St. Louis Blues is pretty good on 22 right now at 1.1. Buffalo Sabres now they are 1.1 because the signature, I think the number is different because the signature yesterday, I don't think so. They was updated. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. You have 2. Honestly, they have 2, Michael.
So, I'm just looking closer to go back to the Islanders, and they're showing they have like 8-9 million in cap space. They have 2, Pulak and Barzal are very important. They have Andrew Ladd. So it'd be interesting to see because he missed the whole year and he's at 5.5.
So they have 3 players that can sold over there. They have Ladd. They have Bolchuk.
Well, Boychuk is surprising to me that
It's too expensive for the pair number 3.
Now he is, yeah.
I
He
would
wasn't
think.
before. He was like top 2 defenseman there, but
So I don't think so. He should be at 6 million. Then the other one over there, I'm not recall it. I'm not remember.
I can't see them buying out Boychuk, but they might. To me, Andrew Ladd is the
I know
lot.
Komarov.
What?
Komarov.
Yeah, he's 20 million, so maybe.
The tripler they was talking this weekend on
Yeah,
TSN,
I
it
could
was
see
Komarov,
those moves.
Land, and Boychuk, because right there they sold about $14 million.
They don't really need it. They need one. They really, if they bought out Ladd, for example, they would have 14 million. They could give 8 or 9 to Barzal and the balance to Pulak, and they'd be okay. So they're actually not too bad.
No, at that moment, I don't think so. They have on the negotiation salary COVID mode. We can call that way. I don't know if you can call it. I don't think so. That Barzal should get more at $8 million right now. You have to follow everything's going on left and right. Now, give him the $9-10 million.
I said, like 8-9 million, I think is what he'll get. I think depends how long he signs for, right? The guy's been pointing a game since he came in the NHL. It's pretty like
I'm not disagree with you about that.
Pretty elite player, and there's nobody on that team like him. That's the other crazy thing. I mean, there's the gap between his talent and everybody else is pretty significant.
Yeah, so it would be very interesting about that one over there. It was just like open up a little bit of the salary cap.
It's always interesting when you look at it.
But my point here, I have a couple of teams that have to figure out something to get also about Detroit have to figure out because only 56 million. Ottawa is 59 right now. So they have to figure out because the minimum I believe was 60 something.
I think it's like 61.
Yeah, I think so.
So I mean, Detroit is kind of funny because I would love to see them buy out Franz Nielsen, but they can't. They need to keep that contract.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right about that one.
A year ago to now, it's pretty remarkable.
Now, Detroit have 3 RFA on their list. Yeah, Bertuzzi is going to hit at $4 million. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
they will get the 60. Detroit will have no problem to get 61 over there. They have still have
you're probably right because Mantha's going to get 5-6, and Bertuzzi will get 4 or 4.5. And
yeah. So that will be very interesting. What's next over there and what's going happening and something we're going to follow up for sure because everything now is go with the salary cap and you have to be sure they respect everything like that. So
for sure.
We'll see. But we hit now the half of the show and let's talking about what you built for everybody here about the Colorado Avalanche with a great manager, Joe Sakic. I'll be honest with you, maybe the top best 5 GM for the last couple of years. And I think the coach over there, Betnar, always been a winner coach in the minor. He's always do a great job. And so he took Patrick Roy bench coach job. He have a difficult time the first year over there where the team was squabbled with its friend.
Oh, they had 48 points.
Yeah.
Like they finished last in the NHL. Yeah. And then, again, going back to the draft, if you look back, they got bumped out of the top spot, which would have been probably, was that McDavid? I think it was the McDavid draft. And then they ended up with Cale Makar, which a lot of people were criticizing. Oh my God, you could have picked these other guys already playing in the NHL. But now we see it all paid. And he could have fired Bednar, after that year. And it's funny. I spelled his name wrong. Jared. I spelled his name wrong. Sorry, Jared Bednar.
I think at that moment he was not like, I think Joe Sakic is really loyal. He's a really great human being person. I have a chance to meet him a lot of time. His son played for Colorado Thunderbird. Those retired players like 90s, they stay with Colorado Avalanche, Adam Foote.
For sure. And, they had you could tell they had he was always a gentleman. There's always that story, I don't know if you recall, where Sean Avery was a rookie on Detroit, and he was known for chirping players throughout his whole career. and he started chirping Sakic, and Brett Hull stands up and grabs him by the pants and sits him down and goes, son, you're not allowed to talk to Mr. Sakic. So I think the players, even on the opposing teams, like understood what a gentlemanly player he was, and he's continued that. And I thought he was kind of nuts when they finished 48th. They moved out a lot of players, like they moved out Duchesne, which I actually thought was a good move. They let Ryan O'Reilly go. I think that was predated him, which, of course, for me, I was like, wow, I definitely would not have done that. And we see what Ryan went on to do, and then they hit 48 points, and it was like the world was caving in. And then they didn't get the first overall draft pick. So it looked like really bleak at that point. But McKinnon was still there. McKinnon was not the player he is today. But, man, he has blossomed. He's a top 2 or 3 players in the NHL, I think, right now. Jared Bednar went from 48 points to, getting into the playoffs. Some of that was how they structured the lineup. It was also the emergence of McKinnon, the emergence of Rantanen. And then we saw 2 years ago in the playoffs when Makar came in, here's a great superstar young D that just took a little bit of time. And then, Andre Burakovsky was one of those under-the-radar moves that he made last year, and he really panned out, where he was in Washington kind of stuck on the third, fourth line. He comes to Colorado, gets top 6, and he produces like 24 goals. In the offseason, you were talking about Devon Toews, so he traded a couple picks to get, who's arguably a top 4 defenseman. They're having a little bit of trouble signing him, but I think in the end they'll get him for a good number. Even in arbitration, I think he's only going to get $4 million. He might get less, like he might get 3.5. Brandon Saad, they moved Zadorov, who's always been very inconsistent. I thought had a good playoff, but they trade him, I think, to get a very good forward with experience of winning a cup. So now they've got another top 6 forward who can play center, can play wing, can play either wing, big, strong power guy that can score 20, 25 goals. So they're looking really good. The guy that you want to watch for is Bo Byrem. So here was another high draft pick 2 years ago from the Vancouver Giants. I mean, this guy is, in my opinion, he is Cal Makar, only a little taller. Like, he's the same type of player. Like, he's such a talented, high-end player. We saw him as like a young player before he got drafted lead Vancouver to the championship, like the finals. Like, he is just a phenomenal player. And then you look at their prospects, and they got guys coming up. Like Alex Newhook looks like that was a brilliant pick. They drafted Foudy's brother. So Liam Foudy's brother, Jean-Luc, he's another really exceptional skater, fast player with a little bit of grit and can score. And we see what the other Foudy is doing in Columbus, where we'll talk about him tomorrow. But, man, the playoffs, he looked like he was their best player some days. They got, I think, a bit of a steal in Barron. I don't know if you followed this, but Justin Barron fell in the draft. He had injury problems. I think he had like concussion problems. And he's a good offensive defenseman from the Qs. So they draft another high-end defensive prospect. A couple years ago, they drafted Martin Kaut, who he's struggled a little bit. I'm not sure I'm sold on him. He's got talent, but he's a little bit dispassionate when you watched him play. But he does have talent. He's a big 6'2" guy with really great hands. And Connor Timmins may still pan out. Like, he's not that old. Like, he's another really good defenseman they could either trade or they could have on the roster for really inexpensive. So if you look at the projected lineup, I think that what they're showing with Burakovsky on the third line is probably incorrect. Like, Donskoy is more of the third line guy. He also, we don't talk about the Nazem Kadri acquisition. Like, they moved out Tyson Barrie, they moved out Kerfoot, and then Kadri has worked out extremely well for them. He's still prone to really terrible penalties, so that's a problem. But we see he can have a huge impact on a game. And in some games in the playoffs, he was the best player, and he scores in bunches. He can hit. He just has to stay out of the box, which has always been a big problem, and taking stupid, like, cheap shots that end up in suspensions in the playoffs. But, there was talk about Gabriel Landeskog. I think they have to re-sign him to a contract, but he's been a great captain. When they were moving out Duchesne and they were kind of talking about clearing what they considered old guys, like Landeskog was on the block for a long time, but, man, he's played very well the last 2 years. So now you got probably one of the top lines in the league, right, Pierre? Like Rantanen, McKinnon, Landeskog. McKinnon and Rantanen are arguably two top 10 players. You got a number 3 and maybe a number 7 or 8. Brandon Saad really rounds out that third line. Burakovsky gives them a lot of offensive punch. And then we saw in the playoffs, like Tyson Jost actually played very well. If they can get Valeri Nichushkin to play to his level consistently, they're going to be a real dangerous team. I thought they would go to the finals, but they had some crazy injury problems. And we saw Dallas, who eventually beat them out, make it to the finals. So I think there's upside opportunity here. The D, I really love Ryan Graves. This is another guy, like, where did this guy come from? Like, he's a big 6'4" defenseman that can skate a little bit, has a good shot, and he's mean one-on-one. Cale Makar, we all know what he's all about. Like, this is an elite playmaking defenseman that can run a power play. If you throw Bo Byrem into this mix, like, ooh, they look crazy. Sam Girard's way better than I think any of us realized. Came in that trade with Nashville and Duchesne. Eric Johnson's been a real good, solid defenseman when he's healthy. Ian Cole had some injuries at the beginning of the year. We say when he came back, he's just super solid, experienced Stanley Cup winning D. And now they get Devon Toews. So they're looking very good on the back end. Their goaltending in the end, they were on their third goalie last year, right? They went down to Michael Hutchinson, I think, in the playoffs because of injuries to Grubauer and Francouz.
Yep.
So luckily they had that third goalie, and I think we're seeing that was a smart decision. But in the end, Grubauer's got to be the number one. He's got to be exceptional. He's got to be healthy. Francouz can be better than we saw, but it's tough in the playoffs. You need that guy like Grubauer's got to be the guy. But overall, I mean, this is a phenomenal team.
Well, when you see that, you can see that they are maybe one of the top, maybe 3 or 4 best defensemen depth over there. Like,
Sure.
about from Graves to Cole over there. Cole is maybe a higher level. I don't like his salary, but I think they have a really solid core over there. Now the right side of the forward, I think you can play musical chair with them. Like
Probably.
After Ratanen, like you can play Burakovsky second line, Dusky go down 3, and Valeri Nichushkin can bring offensive at any moment. You remember he scored a couple of goals at the end of the playoff.
He's got ability. He's a big guy. He can really skate.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sold at GT Comfort, but he have a great career as junior, if I remember.
You know what? I thought he played. Like, he's a good skater. He's better than I thought, and he's actually had pretty decent numbers. Although I think they've dropped a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because you think of his first 3 years, the full seasons, like 11, 16, and 13 goals. He's a consistent 30-point guy. Like, he's pretty decent.
Yep. On the only thing that I think they did a great trade to get Brandon Saad over there. I know he's going to be UFA next year, but that gives them a really solid. I'll be honest with you, when you look this, a solid 7 great forward over there for sure. My concern more about now is Tyson Just and Nat Calvert. The reason I said that to you is because I think Just, he can score 10, 15 goals per year, of course, but it's like a little bit my concern there. I don't know, like a guy like Matt Martin, example. I think he could fit on that kind of the line, not a third line, but a 4 line, and a little bit more a 1 or 2 guy, more physical. I will be like, we know what Belmar can do, but I think a guy like Brent Boy, it can be something solid over there. Can bring now when you look all around, the only spot I always said to you, and I think Gruber is a great goalie. I don't think so. He's a bad goalie.
No, he's not.
You know what I mean? Like, he did not perform the playoff. He got hurt, everything like that. But I think we don't give him enough credit.
They're both good goalies. I think it's if you're going to be a championship team, though, he's got to be healthy and he's got to play the top of his game. There can't be any room, because we just see all the team, like when you have Dallas going to the final and their backups beating you, like, they're beat everybody, but still, like, you need that guy to be there. And Francouz is good, but I'm not sure if he's that guy. I don't know. We'll find out. And I think the other thing is there's probably room on the top 6 to improve a little bit. I do like Burakovsky, but it wouldn't hurt to have another scorer there.
Yeah, I want to mention to you before we move on to the prospect and and then the next we want to bring. I want to bring to you about Devon, um, Devon, the defenseman he just got from Avalanche. Here we go. Sorry, I was. And the guy, he was the 54 ranked defenseman in the NHL for 28.6 goal and 28 point. He's with Broden, Droba, Arlov, Morgan, Riley. Of course, Riley played 25 games. But, Duncan K, Ryan Graves have 26 points. Eric Gustafsson have 29 points. Cam Fowler have 29 points. Parenko from the Blues have 28 points. My question to you is, Dunbar have 24 point last season, but my question to you, with the number, the point he got, I believe he has like $1.4 million contract. How much you think he can get
for Toews?
Yeah.
I think he'll probably get between 3.5 to 4. They think that he might get 3 to 3.5 in arbitration, but they might sign him to a longer term contract worth just under 4. So I guess we'll see if that's the case. I think that's where Islanders were struggling with him, because they just don't have room for that, and they probably don't need it because they got Noah Dobson coming up. But I could see him fitting, because he's going to play top 4 and he can play on the power play. He's a real good skater, makes great decisions with the puck on the outlet, and he can play the point in the power play.
So I believe that signature will open up to Colorado to trade one of the 2 prospect defensemen to get a better top 6 players.
Who?
I'm not like go deep right away, but I think because he did get him like a 2-3 years contract at. The only thing that will open up the door is because I believe, go back on the next one you have right now. There you go. Well, yeah. So go get the next one. Okay. Who is RFA? Is it Cole next year or UFA? Young Cole?
Yeah. No, well, Makar is RFA, and then Ian Cole will be gone next year.
So that's the point here. So I think Timmins and is it Byrem, the prospect?
Who?
Byrem, the defenseman. Who's the 2 prospect? Timmins?
Byrem is not going anywhere.
No, my point to you is like they couldn't keep him down for 1 more year, and then they open up.
They probably do, because they don't want to lose him. But even if Bo Byrem decides he's making this team, he's making this team. he's as good as Cale Makar, right? So it's going to be pretty tough, like, to hold him back. I could see them and he's on an entry-level contract. So then you go, well, who cares? Because in a year, you're going to protect 3 defensemen. Who do you protect? You're going to protect Makar, Byrem, and Graves, and you don't care about anybody else. And then maybe somebody takes that contract from Girard. Maybe Seattle takes Johnson or Girard, and you're not that worried about it. One guy's 32, and the other guy's probably overpaid.
That'll be very interesting to see the signature of the Devon, to know how much he would get and how long this contract.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. He's not a household name, right? He is very good when you watch him. He's not a big guy. He can skate, so he's kind of that prototypical guy. And he can run a power play. He can play second.
That's like they have in the following year. They have 6 UFA.
Because of the forwards too, but they're working on a contract with Landeskog. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Saad, or if they just let him go. Comfer, you don't worry about too much. He's 30, is he? No, he's 25, so he's still young. It's more Calvert. That's what I'm thinking. Calvert's 30. Calvert's too much money for what he is. It's gonna be interesting, but they're in pretty good shape. If you look at what they have coming up, like, conceivably in a year or 2, Alex Newhook is on this team. You've got Bo Byrem, who could play immediately and be top 2 defenseman. Like, they could be really cheap players that have major impact.
Yeah, they have they have a lot of good players coming also up over there. You know what I mean?
Like if you look at their prospects, like Newhook, Foudy, Barron, Kaut, Timmins, and Bo Byrem especially, like Bo Byrem is another star defenseman.
Oh, the defensemen have no problem there. You have Timmons over
Or,
there, over there.
Newhook and Foudy, like, be interesting to see. I don't think Newhook's ready, but man, he had a great first year in college. And then, Jean-Luc Foudy is just like Liam. Like, he is an exceptional skater. He might be one of the fastest skaters. He's almost as fast as anyone right now. Like, he's an exceptional skater. So it'd be interesting. And then the Justin Barron thing, I guess we have to keep an eye on his health, right?
Yeah. Or be, I mean, like, they get a couple of players, like you just said. Justin Barron will be one over there. I think, Alex Newhook. I really like him.
He's real good. That's such a good pick.
You know what I mean? And then we did not mention too much about Martin Kaut.
Yeah, I'm not sold on him, but he does have talent. I think the problem for me with him is he can come across, he's talented. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He's got good hands. He feels very passive sometimes. Like he's waiting for the puck, And when he gets the puck, he wakes up. So I don't like players like that. But he does have ability. He could impact the lineup. Like sometimes guys like that are just finding space and they score because they find space, right? But he floats much for my liking.
But he played 9 games last season. He have 3 points with the show.
He's talented and he's big.
Yeah, so he's 6'2", like you just said.
But even look at his number, like he's playing in the Czech league. He's only got a goal in 4 games. Now I don't know how much they're playing him because they
just started the season. You know what I mean? Like you cannot judge right away and like.
I mean, I watched him quite a bit in the rookie camp, and he was not good. He was like not a good player. He was just like not in the play, even in the offensive zone. It was like he was waiting for shit to happen. It drives you nuts. Like if you're a coach, it's like, come on, like get in the play, like read where it's going and go get the puck. Or it was like he wanted to score, but he was just waiting for it to happen. I don't think that works in the NHL. But he's real talented. He's got abilities. So, and if they do one thing, they develop talent.
Yeah, they do. I'm looking about the draft. In 2007, they draft Kevin Shattenkirk.
Yeah. But then they traded him part of that Chris Stewart trade, right? That's what they got Eric Johnson from.
And that year they got on 50, have a lot of draft players, but they got DJ Callardi.
Right. He played a lot.
He played 321 game.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Like they got but the best 2009, Matty Shine, Ryan O'Reilly, and Tyson Barrie.
I mean, the O'Reilly trade, O'Reilly, that drove me nuts because just before him, Detroit picked Landon Ferraro. And I was like, and he played for Everett and his dad played in the NHL. But I was like, wow, you guys missed Ryan. And I think everybody slept on Ryan. And then Ryan made the team at 18.
If you think about that, something, maybe you can tell me more about that one. I mean, maybe all the listener here, why O'Reilly was not higher level. Like he got 33 overall, so he was the second pick on the first round or the third pick.
Yeah, it was. I understand the knock on him has always been when we had him, he went first overall in the OHL draft, and I think that was a bit of a surprise because his brother Cal played. He was like the all-time or one of the all-time leading scorers in Windsor. So the thought was that Erie would pick Taylor Hall, and then Windsor would get Ryan. And he did not have a good OHL Cup because he played for us with a torn thigh. Like it was a mess. But then he went first, and he went to Erie, and Erie had Robbie Fatorik as the coach, and Robbie was a little different. I think he put a lot of emphasis on the defensive side of the game, And so Ryan's numbers were never good. And the other knock against Ryan was his skating. And I understand why, because he kind of had this tiptoe style game. But if you don't know him and you're not on the ice with him, one, I have never, ever, of all the players that I've coached or scouted, I've never seen a player as dedicated to his fitness as that player. Like Ryan taught me so much about commitment to fitness at like 15. Like he would call me and I was kind of a shuttle driver for a while for him. He would call me and say, "Hey, can we go to the rink?" I'm like, "We don't have a game for 5 hours." He goes, "Yeah, are you okay if we go to the rink?" We were at the rink 4 hours before a game, Pierre. And he would go, "Thanks," and he'd see ya, and he'd go up in the stands with his headphones and his soccer ball, and he would prepare. And then he would go warm up with the boys for an hour. When they got there, he was already sweating. And you saw it when he went to the combine. So I think the thing against him was the skating. His offensive numbers were not good in junior. He had 19 and then 16 goals. And so then it was like nobody had him. They said, "Oh, he's going to be a third line center." And
that year in 2009, they draft number 3 around. It was like Matt Duchene. So they give you an idea, right? And then right now, Duchene 589 points, then already have 560. But
totally, because if you know Matt and you know Ryan, what I just described to you about Ryan is not Matt. Like Matt went third. So in the OHL draft that year that Ryan played with us, he went first. Taylor Hall went second, and then Matt Duchene went third to Brampton. And Matt Duchene had Cody Hodgson. So Matt Duchene and Cody Hodgson were the stars in Brampton, right? So they looked real good. They scored a lot of points, but you could see you had 2 soft kids, and they were just real more talented than everybody. And then Taylor Hall was intense. Like Taylor Hall won 2 Memorial Cups. Windsor did a great job with Bob Bugner and Warren Reichel, right? So they went into Windsor. They built this powerhouse team. Adam Henrique. They had Taylor Hall. They had a lot of good players, and they won 2 Memorial Cups in a row. And you saw Taylor Hall's intensity. So then, you had those 2 guys and then Erie did nothing. Like Erie was just not a great team. And I think that there was too much emphasis put on the defensive side. And for a guy like Ryan, who's very hard on himself and who's very focused on every part of it, like he can kill penalties. Yes. So he had him on the PK. He had him on the power play, but his offensive numbers were not good. And he's not a beautiful skater. But if you don't understand what he does around fitness, you don't understand how good his hands are. He has hands as good as those other guys. And he sees the ice very well. But if you don't know that unless you coach him or you can't talk to him and get anything from him either, because he's like stoic. So I think all that played against him, and he fell. And then what happened? He goes to the NHL Combine. He set records that they still can't break. Like you think of all the guys cannot break his records, and he was skinny. He didn't look big, but he every year put on 10 pounds, put on 10 pounds, put on 10 pounds. So I think that was the story of Ryan. He worked harder than anybody, and he has way more understanding and intelligence in the game, and he's so quiet. He's just a quiet person.
And the worst draft pick year for Colorado was 2014. They get anybody on the draft only. Anton Lindholm plays 66 games in NHL. It was 144 overall. They didn't do anything about any deal. Like they get anything from other 6 other picks. That was the worst draft pick year for Colorado the last 10 years.
Was that 2005?
Yeah. You know what? I want to give you an idea. Like, remember like Radim Verbata?
Yep.
He was drafted 7th-round pick, 212 overall pick. He played over 1,000 games in NHL.
That's crazy when you think about how much he played.
The 99-98 draft pick, it was really good for them.
Yeah.
96 was really good. It's when you look to study the team, you know what I mean? Like all those teams, it's really impressive about what they can do, everything like that. So, it was just the story about the Colorado Avalanche. On my, I don't know that 31 days we're going to do our power ranking NHL. I'll be honest with you, they are my best top 5 team in NHL for the upcoming season.
Excited about Columbus.
We'll see what happens with them. So tomorrow we'll go back with Columbus Blue Jacket with one of the great GM in the NHL, the Finland.
Oh yeah,
and then of course John Tortorella, and see what happening there. They have a lot of space on the cap space on the salary. So a couple of things going happening over there. They got Mats Domi as a second center over there now with a trade with Montreal with Josh Anderson. So I'm pretty sure you're going to bring some great nuggets there for tomorrow with them. So thanks again, Hockey Nation fans, to be with us every day daily. Michael, you bring a great job with Colorado. It was a good thing. I want to follow up. And your teams come in with Detroit. The next couple of days, there will be that thing. The 3 days after that, they will be here like Thursday about after Dallas, I believe he will be here. So thanks again, Michael. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Monday. See you tomorrow, Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Have an amazing day.